Princess and the Pea. The Picky Prince. Once upon a time, there was a prince who wanted to marry a princess. But he didn't just want any old princess, he wanted a real one. Not one of the local princesses would do. "What's the matter with them, Patrick?" cried his father, the king. "I'm running out of princesses to show you." "I can't be sure if they're real," sighed Prince Patrick. "I'll have to find one for myself." "You must do whatever you want, darling," said the queen, who spoiled him rotten. The next day, Prince Patrick set out to travel the world in search for a real princess. He took with him his 12 suitcases, 10 pairs of shoes, a spare crown, and his cousin Fred. "Goodbye, my love," cried the queen, wiping a tear away with her silk handkerchief. They hadn't gone far when they heard a loud sneeze from under the seat. "Who is there?" shouted the prince. A small figure crept out. "Aren't you the palace maid?" said Prince Patrick. Peg nodded. "Well, what are you doing here?" the prince asked. "I want to see the world," said Peg. "I've been at the palace all my life, ever since I was left on the doorstep as a baby." She blushed. "And the cook's furious because I burned the pudding," she added. "Well, you can't come with us," said Fred. "This is a boys-only adventure." "Well, we're not turning back now," said Prince Patrick. "She'll have to join us." Peg grinned at Fred. "Okay," Prince Patrick went on. "First stop, the Wicked Witch's hut." Fred looked alarmed. "You're joking, right?" Prince Patrick shook his head. "The witch will know how to find a real princess. She's my best hope." Chapter 2. Off to see the witch. "Now, Peg," said Prince Patrick, "this could be dangerous. You stay in the coach. Fred and I will meet the witch." The prince knocked 3 times on the witch's door. There was no answer. "Looks like no one's in. We'll have to go," said Fred, who was already backing away. "She must be in," said the prince. He knelt down to peer through the keyhole. A large green eye was staring at him. Prince Patrick jumped back and landed bottom first in a patch of mud. A short, plump woman opened the door, chuckling to herself. "Did I scare you? I was just checking who you were. You can't be too careful these days." Fred was amazed. "Are you the witch?" he asked. "You're not that scary." The witch looked rather upset. "I try my best," she sighed. "I grew 3 new warts last week." "Come inside," she added. "I'm just cooking some tasty soup for lunch." "We're not hungry," said Prince Patrick quickly. "I've come to ask for your help. I want to know how to find a real princess." "Real princesses are very rare," said the witch, "but it's hard to spot a fake one. But there's a test you can do. A real princess must have boiled brains, rotten beans, and cat spit." "What?" cried the prince. "Oh, sorry, that's a recipe for soup." This is the real princess test. A real princess must possess politeness to one and all, kindness to rich and poor, and very sensitive skin. "Sensitive skin?" Patrick asked, looking confused. "A real princess," explained the witch, "has such tender skin that she could feel a pea under 20 mattresses." "Thank you," said the prince. "You've been very helpful." He turned to the door. "Oh, do stay for lunch," pleaded the witch. "My soup's almost ready. And please, bring that poor girl in from outside." They were stuck in the witch's hut until the cauldron was empty. "I feel sick," Peg groaned on the way back to the coach. "Well, you shouldn't have had 3 bowls then," said Fred. "I was being polite. I didn't want to hurt the witch's feelings." "That was very kind of you, Peg," said Prince Patrick, smiling at her. "Now where are we going?" asked Fred. "Now I have the witch's test, I can finally find a real princess," said the prince. "We're off to meet Princess Prunella. Check the map, Fred." Princess Prunella was very excited to see the prince. "You must come and stay in my castle," she cried. She raced over the bridge, dragging Prince Patrick with her. "Hurry, hurry," she called to her servants. "I want you to prepare the best bedchambers for the prince and Fred." "Excuse me," said Peg, struggling with all the luggage. "Where am I to sleep?" "Maids belong in the attic," replied the princess haughtily. "There may be a few mice there, but I'm sure you'll cope." Peg went to her room. It was cold and damp. She could hear mice scuttling around, squeaking. Meanwhile, Fred and the prince were in the grand dining room with Princess Prunella. You're being very kind, said Prince Patrick. But what about Peg? Is she eating in the kitchen? The princess looked shocked. Your beastly little maid? You can't expect me to bother with her. I'm afraid we must leave, said Prince Patrick. You're not a real princess after all. Oh, yes, I am, Princess Prunella cried. Oh, no, you're not, shouted Fred. You failed the first real princess test. Real princesses are polite to everyone, explained Prince Patrick, and you've just been rude to Peg. Chapter 4, Princess Pavola. I won't give up, said Prince Patrick. There must be a real princess somewhere. According to this map, there's a Princess Pavola next door. Let's try her, Fred suggested. Princess Pavola greeted them all very politely. What a pleasure to have you here, she said. Welcome to my castle. She passed the politeness test, thought the prince. Now what's the next one? Fred, he cried, I have a plan. I'm going to dress up as a beggar and see if Princess Pavola is kind to me. Try out your disguise on Peg first, said Fred, to make sure it works. Prince Patrick found Peg sitting on a tree stump, about to eat an apple. I'm a hungry beggar. Do you have any food for me? Oh, you poor thing, Peg cried when she saw him. Here, have my apple. Prince Patrick was very pleased with himself. Excellent, he shouted. It works, throwing off his disguise. What are you doing? Asked Peg, but the prince was already knocking on the castle door to try the test on Princess Pavola. A servant answered. Is someone there? Cried Princess Pavola. It's a beggar, your highness. We've got nothing for him, snapped the princess. Tell him to go away. Prince Patrick turned away. She's not a real princess, he thought. A real princess is polite and kind, even to beggars. Chapter 5, A Real Princess. I give up, said the prince with a sigh. I don't think there's a real princess anywhere. We may as well go home. They got ready for the long journey back to the palace. Everyone was glum, even the horses. The coach arrived at the palace just in time. A huge storm was brewing. Peg was sent straight to the kitchens in disgrace. You've got hundreds of dishes to wash, scolded the cook. They've been piling up since you left. Prince Patrick and Fred went to find the king and queen. Outside, rain began beating against the windows. Streaks of lightning lit up the sky. Just then, there was a knock on the door. There's a Princess Primrose to see you, your highness, said the footman. A beautiful princess stepped into the room. She was wet from the cold and shaking. I'm so sorry to trouble you, she said politely, but my coach has broken down. No trouble at all, said Prince Patrick quickly. Why don't you stay the night at our castle? We'll fix your coach in the morning. Well, thank you. I must give you something in return. She acts like a real princess, thought the prince, but I must be sure. He asked the servants to prepare Princess Primrose's bedroom. I want 20 mattresses on the bed, ordered Prince Patrick, and a pea at the very bottom. Peg didn't go to bed that night. She had to finish washing the dishes. The next morning, Princess Primrose came down for breakfast, looking refreshed. How did you sleep? Princess Patrick asked. I loved all those mattresses, the princess said. It was the most comfortable bed. Prince Patrick sighed. A real princess would have felt that pea, he thought. He waved goodbye to Princess Primrose as soon as breakfast was over. It was Peg's job to clean the princess's bedroom. Slowly, she climbed up the ladder, yawning with each step. I must lie down for a moment, Peg thought, before I start cleaning. In no time at all, she was fast asleep. An hour later, Peg woke with a start. Ow, she said, there's something really lumpy in this bed. I'm getting down. But as she leaned over, she knocked down the ladder. It clattered to the ground. Drat, Peg cried. I'm stuck. Help, she shouted as loudly as she could. I'm stuck. Please help. Everyone rushed into the bedroom. What are you doing up there? Prince Patrick called. I was supposed to be cleaning, said Peg, but I was so tired I fell asleep. And there's something horribly hard in this bed, she asked. I'm covered in bruises. I can't believe it, cried the prince. You were polite to the witch, kind to a beggar, and now you felt a pea under 20 mattresses. You must be a real princess. He raced up the ladder. Peg, will you marry me? Peg gasped. You want to marry me, a palace maid? Yes, please. 3 cheers for Princess Peg, shouted Fred, and everyone cheered. So Prince Patrick finally married his real princess. He put the pea in a glass case at the Palace Museum for everyone to see, and it still may be there today. The end.